We are now live, which means I can do something with this. I want to try and make this a little bit more isolated because, you know, all about quality the best we can. We can hit live the countdown as well. If you are watching, welcome along. It is Talkin Comic-Con. We are just getting ourselves nicely set up. There we go. Let's sort that out. And right. Play your booger.
We can go without music.
Oh my word, that's fine. I'm sure we can.
But dare I say, I don't want to risk being controlling again.
You know what?
You're going to hear about that comment the whole show.
Not at all. Not at all. So yes, welcome along. We are a minute and a half away, 4.5 minutes away. Welcome along to Talkin Comic-Con. Just wanted to have a quick couple of announcements. Number one, thank you so much to everybody who filled in the polls that we put together on the website for suggestions about how we can improve the show. We are looking at those numbers and kind of putting some suggestions together. Probably the changes will kick in the new year, but certainly we'll do our best to improve the show in terms of just generally in quality. We'll do what we can to
I think the thing that I really liked about the poll was that people want to see other audience members joining us, and I think that's
was a nice touch.
Yeah, that's a fabulous idea. I love it. I absolutely love it. We need to get more audience members on the show. I don't know how we're gonna. Have we decided how we're gonna do that yet?
The Hunger Games. We're basically, yeah, we're just. It's going to be to the death, and the person who bleeds out the slowest comes on the show.
Okay.
So you know, I think it either that or we're just going to get some lawyers in. What we'll do is we'll get the Salt Lake lawyers in, we'll get the San Diego lawyers in, and then case, and we then decide the audience member off the back of that. This is where Alyssa's going, no, shut up.
Oh, beat each other to death with their briefcases.
Take this. This is my brief. Whack.
I actually would pay to see that.
I would pay. That would be good, wouldn't it? That'd be fantastic. I'd also like to say thank you very much indeed to everybody who's liked and subscribed. We had a whole bunch of people who've been liking and subscribing to the YouTube channel over the last couple of weeks. We've seen a bit of a bump in the numbers. Thank you very much. I think we've been putting on some good shows, so people have been. Thank you so much indeed for jumping on board. It does help with getting the word out to more people, so please do like and subscribe. And of course, support us on Patreon at, details are there on the screen, patreon.com/EnglishmanSDCC. Does go to helping us and helping us put the show together, hosting the show, hosting the website. It really is very much appreciated. Everybody who jumps in on the Patreon, we really appreciate it. Thank you. We're going to be live in about a minute and a half. I'm going to do my best to monitor the YouTube chat purely because yes, I'm running on slightly different technical equipment. Part of that Patreon money may be going to new technical equipment because we had some fun and games with my laptop this week, but we're kind of putting it all together and getting there slowly but surely. So yeah, we'll do our best to monitor. As always, jump in on the Q&A. Any questions you have. What we are going to be talking about today, if there's any of these topics you want to contribute to, we are going to be talking about Salt Lake City versus San Diego Comic-Con, the legal dispute that's been going on. The court case starts this week, so we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about net neutrality and also how that affects San Diego Comic-Con attendees, because at the end of the day, to attend a Comic-Con, not just San Diego, you do have to chime in. That could be affected by the services that you actually sign up for if net neutrality actually comes into effect, or if what the FCC are wanting to implement comes into effect. It could affect your speed, the websites. this is something we are going to be talking about. It's going to be talking about ReedPOP, MCM Comic-Con, recent news about British Comic-Cons and how that shapes the UK comics landscape. Yeah, we're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff. So please do jump in on the Q&A. Let us know where you're watching from. And, of course, any of the things that you want to talk about today, please do. We'd love to have your contributions with us today. We're running a little bit late. We're about 3 minutes behind, but yeah, that's why we're just going to jump in with the whole introductions thing. So let me turn the screen sharing off. Let me turn that off. My webcam will kick in at some point. There we go. Right. Yeah, we'll just dive straight into it. Hi, my name is Len Sultana. This is Talking Comic-Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. I have my cup of tea. I'm certain that my guests have some kind of beverage, some way of kind of staving down all the turkey cravings this week. Because something that we didn't mention at the end of last week's show, happy Thanksgiving. I hope you've had a fantastic week and a fantastic weekend. Yeah, let's ask our guests, see how they've done. Alyssa Franks from the Friends of Comic-Con Forum, how are you?
I am well. I am thankful for the major thing that has come to my mind today that I'm thankful for is all of the pioneers that have come before us in geek culture to pave the way for the freedoms that we now have and that we can explore ourselves. I am, you know, the all of the artists and the comic book creators and all of the, you know, the Black Hero Matters and all of these people that are out there. I also would like to make an announcement, if I may, right off the bat. I am, after 23 years of marriage, we are calling it quits. And this is an official announcement. And we're finally starting to let people know. So the next 3 or 4 months, I'm going to be going through some pretty difficult splitting up of properties and probably moving sometime in the early spring. I may be in San Diego for San Diego Comic-Con next year. Who knows? We'll see. So that's how my
wow.
week's been. How was your week, Leonard?
Wow. Okay. I obviously my week has been a little bit fraught with stuff and nonsense with computers, which now seem rather light and trivial. So I will no longer discuss them ever again. No, that's big news. And I really hope that an upward, Alyssa. That's all we can wish. So yeah.
I'm anticipating hopefully a smooth transition. I would like it to go very mellow. I don't want big arguments, and so hopefully it won't impact anybody. But I did want anybody that's watching, or you know, my con involvement or anything like that. But I did want to just let people know what's happening and make the announcement.
Well, I do know that on certainly on the forum and online, you have a big fan base out there. You have a strong support system. So here's you in the future, and like you say, a smooth transition. Let's fingers crossed, and let's pull it in for you.
Absolutely.
Okay, brilliant stuff. In terms of positivity for Alyssa, let's go positive on that. And how's the week gone in terms of Thanksgiving? I mean, have you seen family and friends?
I had, yes, absolutely. I had a wonderful Thanksgiving. Lots of what I call my standard classic pink drink, which is a vodka concoction, and an amazing apple tort, Bavarian cream apple tort thing. But I'm sure everybody will have SDCC fit plans, because I know Aaron is watching us too. that he's already gotten his little bit of activity in today, and I'm sure everybody is gearing up to combat the winter weight gain. since we are now fully into that season of that extra 10 pounds. How are you doing, Rob?
Yes, we have ourselves Rob Salkovich. Hello, Rob. How are you, sir?
Hi, nice to be with you.
How was your Thanksgiving?
We survived. My parents were in town, which is always an adventure, and they just left, so that's also good. God bless them. I love them dearly. But it's good. But it's good to see them for the for a few days. But yeah, in the meantime, so I'm trying to combat the winter weight gain too. But rather than going to the gym, I've decided to spend part of my morning with you guys. So see how that goes. You can put me through my reps.
I mean, I know that you've got things to do on a Sunday, which I totally appreciate. So we'll crack straight on with our topics for the day. First things first, we will dive into the upcoming court dates for San Diego Comic-Con versus Salt Lake Comic-Con. This is obviously, if you've been following the story, this is the legal dispute between CCI, Comic-Con International, against Bob Farr's organization, which is basically against the trademark infringement of using the phrase Comic-Con or the term Comic-Con. Now, I wanted to quickly ask you, Rob, because I mean, I've been trying to follow this, and all I have been seeing is posts like your own, posts on Forbes. It hasn't really caught a great deal of groundswell, but it has certainly on Salt Lake's side when it comes to their fan base, and that does kind of feed into the announcement or the judgment that was put forward that Salt Lake were to cease and desist from any discussions online about the case. Do you still think that there's that kind of fan base, and would it actually influence the case at this point?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last bit of what you said there, but the latest development in the case is that the gag order was lifted. And so Salt Lake City had been running a very public campaign to marshal support for their cause. Unfortunately, it's not up for a vote. It's in front of a jury. So all they were doing was generating a lot of online conversation from people that aren't involved in the case necessarily. Maybe they have a stake in the outcome. The gag order was lifted a couple of weeks ago. And it was on First Amendment grounds. The Circuit Court reviewed it and said that they have a right to free speech. So they are back to putting out news about what's going on. From what I hear, the latest developments in the pretrial side from people involved in the case is that there were a series of motions for what kind of evidence could be admitted into the case that has been going on. And each side put forward 5 motions that they wanted certain things considered or certain ways that the law to be read. San Diego Comic-Con prevailed on, I think, 4 out of the 5 things that they wanted, and Salt Lake City prevailed on 1 out of the 5 that they wanted. The case should be heading to jury soon. I haven't looked at the docket. I'm not sure. I know it was scheduled for November, and there just isn't that much time left. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I was under the impression that it was actually happening this week. I didn't realize that it was still kind of in the air about what when the actual trial.
If it has been going on this past week, then I've been out of the loop on it. I haven't seen the very latest developments of it. I did read the discovery documents and all of the stuff that was available publicly over the summer. So I'm sort of familiar with what the outlines of the case are. The interesting thing here is that if San Diego Comic-Con wins, it will have implications not just for Salt Lake City, but for the entire Comic-Con business. Everybody that uses that term Comic-Con, whether with a hyphen, all one word, no hyphen, whatever, any formulation of that will be considered their professional mark. And strictly speaking, anybody that wants to use that is going to have to pay Comic-Con International license fee to use that, where they could ask for one and get it. Let's put it that way. That they would prevail on the usage of that term if they were going after anybody else. Salt Lake City has put themselves in a particularly vulnerable position because of the way that they chose their name, because of some of the documents that were exposed in the discovery process, it seems pretty clear that the organizers there came up with this to say, hey, San Diego Comic-Con is really popular. Let's call our event a Comic-Con so that we can get some of that energy going. That's infringement. That's like, if your intent is to capitalize on somebody else's position in the market to bolster your own event, that's a pretty strong case. Of course, we'll see what the court says, but that wouldn't be necessarily the case if they were going after ReedPOP, or if they were going after another kind of event where that kind of evidence may not exist. So it's kind of interesting. I think the rest of the Comic-Con world is going to be watching with bated breath to see what happens, because they're picking on not picking on, but they have gone after the softest target.
So, and you're saying that ReedPOP isn't in danger because there isn't that smoking gun? Is that what I'm reading you say?
I don't know what the situation with ReedPOP is, but San Diego Comic-Con has not sued ReedPOP. They've sued Salt Lake City. Mm-hmm. If they win, they're going to get a judgment that says that the trademark Comic-Con belongs to them. And that means that everybody else that uses the Comic-Con mark or the Comic-Con nomenclature, whether they're party to the case or not, will be subject to that ruling. Mm-hmm. So if they had sued ReedPOP for infringement, then it would have been an entirely different case, because there would have been different evidence to suggest why ReedPOP decided to call their event New York Comic-Con or what have you. And they may have had a much stronger case for using that term than Salt Lake City does. In the case of Salt Lake City, there's some specific stuff out there that strongly indicates that the organizers saw how well San Diego Comic-Con was doing and consciously decided, because of that they're going to call their event a Comic-Con so that they can tap into that same energy. That intent might be what this case is decided on. So we'll see. I'm not a lawyer. I've just been following the stuff. I've been reading the filings on both sides, and I'm familiar with Salt Lake City is claiming, of course, it's a generic term, and they thought they could use it because they figured it was generic and there was no reason not to. So, the jury will decide.
Just to your concern of CCI authorizing other conventions to use it and requiring a fee or something like that. It seems as though what they've done, CCI has done in the past couple of weeks that I've noticed, has been, there was a convention that we had an actual live report from with Aaron that was trademarked by, was allowed to use the Comic-Con trademark by CCI. I believe it was not Long Beach, Palm Springs Comic-Con. Aaron Naboo did a live report from there. And there was also another convention in New Jersey. So they're starting to go out and speak to other conventions. It's kind of interesting to me that at no point did it sound as though that they were asking for money. It was more of adhere to the CCI mission statement. Have you heard anything about that?
I think that's correct. In informal conversations that I've had with people, behind the scenes on this, the CCI is not interested necessarily in making money on it. Their issue is when the lay public that's not as in on this stuff as we are sees an event called Palm Springs Comic-Con or Monmouth, New Jersey Comic-Con or whatever, what have you, they assume that it's like the local franchise of Comic-Con International. It's like, oh, I've never been to the big one, but I've been to the Ohio Comic-Con, so I kind of know what it's like. People think that it's like McDonald's, that there's like a corporation that runs all of them and that they're all connected. And so consequently, if you have a crummy time at Rhode Island Comic-Con and you go on the internet and you say, wow, those Comic-Con folks, they save their best stuff for the people in San Diego, but they really screwed the hell out of us. Comic-Con International takes the reputational hit for an event that they have no control over. And I think that's their main concern, is that if an event calls itself a Comic-Con, it has to have some commitment to fan experience. And, you know, again, they can't run everybody's convention, but I think they want to be lenient about the use of that term to the extent that they can. They don't want to be, you know, the bad cop on this stuff. At the same time, they don't want to get blamed if an event just appropriates that term for themselves and then runs a lousy show, and then they take a hit for it, and they're like, well, where did this come from?
Well said.
And that's another aspect of the Salt Lake City case, that Salt Lake City did some things to deliberately propound confusion between their event and San Diego Comic-Con, including running a car through the streets of San Diego during Comic-Con with a thing that said Salt Lake City Comic-Con on it, that got impounded by the San Diego cops, who then called Comic-Con International and said, we've got your vehicle in our lot. And they said, what the hell are you talking about? This is what we would call an aggravating circumstance. One of the things that led them to file this suit in cases where they might have left it the same, that they really poked the bear on this one, and it's that among a couple of other things, I think was a bridge too far.
Absolutely, yeah. Go ahead.
As well, Rob, in terms of the protection of the brand. I mean, we've got a question from Andrew English asking, would this affect Comic-Cons outside the USA? The legal case clearly wouldn't. It's not something that would have any kind of legal jurisdiction on an international nature, but it does say something about the fact that it is Comic-Con International court case, and the fact that Comic-Con International representatives have gone further afield. We do know that David Glanzer was visiting representatives of MCM Comic-Con back in summer. They are wanting to protect that brand, even if the brand isn't technically theirs. It is just that term Comic-Con, which has become so pervasive. In terms of the actual support that I've been seeing, obviously the vast majority of support is going to Salt Lake, because they have been the ones that have been kind of groundswell online. And like you say, the gag order has now been lifted. I wasn't actually aware of that. I thought that was still in place. Do you think it's going to hurt San Diego Comic-Con that they don't have forum communication with their audience? That's really the only communication that they have on a kind of basis is their Twitter feed, and even then they don't really discuss stuff like this. Do you think that might hurt them in their case?
I mean, I guess they're aware of it. It annoys them. That I think that they by nature are reticent about this stuff. I've been covering Comic-Con. You know, when I was writing my book about Comic-Con, you know, that came out on a major publisher, that I could not get them to comment officially or even return my phone calls, even though I was assuring everybody that it was going to be a good book for them. And, you know, so they don't like to talk about how the sausage gets made. And the idea that these guys in Salt Lake are airing all of this stuff publicly is highly distasteful to them. They don't think that that's a good thing to be doing. They understand why they're doing it. It's one of the reasons that they asked for the gag order, is because there was some defamation that was going on, especially in the comments and stuff like that. And they were abiding. You know, usually when these things are happening, the judge doesn't like when the parties take their cases public either. This is a legal matter. So, I mean, I think that's what's behind it. I think it's just temperamentally they're not that they don't care for this tactic, and they are trying to get them to knock it off.
I believe, just to correct a misconception here, I believe that the federal judge last on the 16th or the 22nd of November actually ordered Salt Lake Comic-Con to cease and desist and to take down, remove all talk of their.
That's what. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Right. That's
okay. Well, the gag order was lifted by the circuit court. It may have been reinstated. I saw a thing that you sent around on that. But it was, as of a couple of weeks ago, it was lifted, and actually Salt Lake City was considering the idea of putting up a crowdfunding to fund their legal fees for this. They decided to withdraw that.
Right, they withdraw that. What the news report says on the 22nd, and I'll post it, or Leonard can post it on the links, is that he ordered the litigation web pages on Salt Lake Comic-Con's website to be immediately purged. And
is this the piece? Is this the piece you just sent out prior to this call?
Yes, and it's at the very end.
So that's dated September 22nd.
Okay. I apologize.
so
apologize.
No problem. No, I saw that because I was thinking, wow, did they reverse themselves on this? No, the circuit court overruled this ruling and let them continue as of, I think, October 28th or something like that. It's only been the last couple of weeks.
My apologies. Sometimes I have problems with dates.
No problem. You have other things on your mind.
Oops. I will say that one of the things that I've been really interested in, and going back to CCI's involvement with some of the other conventions that are happening out there, the Palm Springs Con and the New Jersey convention that's happening, is I really like the idea of CCI reaching out and almost validating other conventions. I like the idea that I can go to the New Jersey convention and have an understanding that it's going to be based on the same principles as San Diego is, with kind of a focus towards comics and not so much towards the fan events, the fan autographs and the like. Your thoughts?
And the fact is, those kind of events have other names that are available to them. They can call it an expo, they can call it a show, they can call it a fan extravaganza, whatever. I mean, kamikaze, any of these terms that don't involve Comic-Con as the concept are free and clear. And Leonard, on your point on the international stuff, that's a really interesting point. One of the issues is that ReedPOP, has been, I know in the future segment you're looking at their recent acquisition. They've been, really developing these events overseas. They're a U.S. company, so I don't know what the legal status is of their, if they're running an international event, but they're a U.S. company, whether they're subject to U.S. trademark law on that stuff or not. Be interesting to see. Certainly an independently run event in the UK or in India or elsewhere in the world that calls itself a Comic-Con, it's hard to imagine they would be under the jurisdiction of this ruling.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just having a little bit of a technical issue.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to net neutrality while we still have Rob before he has to vanish. Oh, and Leonard seems to have vanished. So we're going to move on to net neutrality at this point. I personally, a lot of people out there, and unless there's anything else you'd like to add to the Salt Lake City thing, Rod. Yeah.
Nope.
Well, if stay tuned and certainly keep a listen to Rob's Twitter feed in the future, because I'm sure you'll be reporting.
Once the case has actually gone to trial and there's some news out of that, I'll be covering that fairly extensively in my Forbes column and/or for ICV2 and on my Twitter at RobSalk. So you can check into all of those places.
We're going to be following you on a daily basis. That sounds good. I'm really glad to hear that, because having somebody who understands the background of it and giving us information is wonderful. Net neutrality. Just if people aren't aware of what's happened, the current FCC chair, PAI, who is a Trump appointee, announced this past week that he intends to roll back the Obama-era rules that were put in place last year for net neutrality. and it's a confusing topic. What is net neutrality? Has confused a lot of people. So let me just bear with me as I go through it a little bit so people can understand it. Basically, what they're talking about doing, what the FCC is talking about doing, is instituting fast lanes and slow lanes for the internet. They do require, the FCC is clearing the way for internet service companies, ISPs, to charge users more for certain content and to curb access to some websites to create a fast lane and a slow lane. They currently required ISPs to disclose, they will require them to disclose blocking and throttling and prioritizing, but you still will end up having to pay more if you want to get access to some services, is my understanding of it. Currently, net neutrality prevents them from blocking or slowing access to certain sites like voice over IP, telephone calls over the web, YouTube, or Netflix. That very well could change. Say, for example, an ISP decided that it would rather have you, instead of subscribing to Netflix, it would rather have you use their service. So they would charge more to have access to Netflix. That's my understanding of it. Rob, do you have anything that you'd like to add, or that I misspoke?
Well, so I guess I see it slightly differently. Let me say at the first case that I am very much in favor of net neutrality. My general principle on these things is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the way the internet works right now seems fine. And I don't think that there's this huge groundswell of interest from people that use the internet to have it run on a separate basis. That said, what the net neutrality what lifting net neutrality would allow is for the carriers to charge different rates for different levels of service, not necessarily to the end users, but to the content providers. So to put this in perspective, right now, 73% of all net traffic is video. Most of it coming through Netflix, YouTube, Amazon Prime, and related video services. As we move from high-def video to 4K, the bandwidth requirements for that are going to grow tremendously. And so by 2021, IP traffic is probably going to be 87 to 88% video. The people that, and the rest of it is going to be services like YouTube or like SoundCloud, and like audio services, Apple. So the majority of that carriage is going to be traffic that is put out by very large companies. Those companies will pay any amount of money to make sure that their customers can continue to get premier access to their content. They will be paying Comcast. You won't be paying Comcast necessarily. They'll be paying Comcast, AT&T, Time Warner to make sure that those carriers don't discriminate. So a lot of the money that Google is putting in its pocket right now, and Amazon and Apple and these companies that are making hundreds of billions of dollars off of free internet carriage, Comcast, which has built those lines, and the other carriers that have built that infrastructure are looking at that and saying, why are these people getting to keep 100 cents on the dollar and we're not able to charge anything, even though they are monopolizing essentially the internet that we've built? So to me, it's a colorable argument to say they are entitled to getting a little slice of that pie, and this is how they're going to do it. I don't think that it's going to be that big a deal. That it is theoretically possible that the carriers could restrict service access to individual users, and that they could bundle up these services to prioritize their own traffic. I think in practice, what's going to happen is that Google and Netflix and Amazon and Apple and all of the big companies are going to pay whatever they are asked in order to make sure that they are not on the wrong side of that. That's going to be not a cost to us as consumers. And that the 1% of web traffic that is regular people's websites and this podcast and all of the other stuff is going to be completely unaffected because it's too low bore for them to worry about. This is not where the money is. This isn't where the action is. In theory, could we be worried about it? Yeah, sure. I mean, it allows stuff to happen that we don't want to happen. But to me, that's a low. The immediate thing that's going to happen is a big transfer of money between the big content providers going to the carriers, and not
just
not
out of curiosity.
That's my devil's advocate.
No, that makes sense. My question is not necessarily about price, which I can understand completely a lot of people's concerns in terms of the charging for various services, various IPs, etc. But my concern is the way that this particular, or the changes that they're wanting to implement will be a case of the IPs then effectively holding services like Netflix, like YouTube, under the gun in terms of throttling their speed. That's something that I've been hearing about. How's that possibly going to affect us in terms of attendees for conventions, especially those that perhaps want to buy tickets or buy badges for an event, and perhaps speed is a factor when IPs can get throttled? How do you see that possibly playing out?
So I think that Netflix will pay any amount of money to prevent their service from being throttled, so that they need us, the audience, more than we need them. For us, Netflix or any of these other services or any over-the-top service is a value add. And if it's a hassle to get it, then we'll get it from somewhere else. CBS or whoever was putting out Star Trek, really wants us to sign up for that service. The last thing that they want is for some carrier to make it harder for their audience to get to them. So instead of allowing the provider to offer a package that has a lower caliber of service for that content, they will pony up the money. That's how I see it playing out, just because of that's where the economics are. Maybe in the long run, they'll find a way to pass that cost along to consumers, but the money that's changing hands is unlikely to come from us. In terms of preserving your access to particular types of content, I would recommend, I need to do a little bit more research to see if this is actually a legitimate workaround, but anybody concerned about internet privacy right now should be using a VPN. I'm paying about $3 or $4 a month for a VPN service. Every time I connect, I hook up to the VPN, it routes my traffic through some server somewhere, and my ISP has no idea what websites I'm looking at or what services I'm using. All they're seeing is I'm connected to the VPN. So as long as the VPN can maintain access, then this is going to be the way to get around it. And it's an incremental added cost. But if you're that concerned about it, that should be something you should be doing, net neutrality or not.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I looked at
that said, everybody should be writing to the FCC and telling them not to do this, because it's stupid and it's a bad thing to be doing. But if they do end up forcing it through, I don't think we're going to see the end of the world scenarios that are being predicted. It is going to be a pain in the ass, but this is 2017. It's not 2007. It's not 1997 when this policy would have been much more consequential. Well,
I mean, the historic case has been BitTorrent in, what was it, back in the early in the mid 2000, when Comcast tried to throttle or block BitTorrent, and they came they were overruled because of I think in 14 because the web was open to everybody. So they were not able, Comcast was not able to block access to download content. It had to be illegal content, I think was the limitation that they used. So there's a
anybody who's using BitTorrent should absolutely be using a VPN. Mm-hmm. Especially if you are uncertain about who owns the rights to the stuff that you're to the files that you're going back and forth. Even if you think it's public domain or somebody else, or that you own it or something, there may be some issues with it, and the ISPs can track that, and they do send you nastygrams to say cut it out if they think you're using your BitTorrent to download stuff that they don't want you to be doing. So if you're using that, but I mean, again, if you look at the trends and where the internet traffic is going, huge amount of it is going to be commercial traffic going to and from private clouds owned by corporations. A large amount of it is going to be Internet of Things and stuff like your video surveillance cameras, like your Nest cameras, communicating to the internet back and forth. So it's that kind of traffic. The other thing is that mobile is going to overtake PC. Mobile is already way more web traffic in many emerging countries, like in China and India and places like that, and Korea, than it is here. But it's going to be that way worldwide by 2021. And the net neutrality, as far as I understand, doesn't apply to mobile data. Mobile carriers can discriminate, and that's why you're seeing Verizon saying, "Oh, you can do unlimited Netflix or whatever." They're allowed to do that. So to the extent that we're moving away from wireline service and toward mobile broadband, this issue has already been settled in the other direction.
Interesting. Interesting. We've got a couple of comments coming in on the Q&A. Chuck is talking about how the providers like Netflix absolutely do pay for access. It's not free. And do you really think that the services like Netflix will not pass costs on to us? Sarita P, it's about charging for particular service and charging to use a faster service. It all comes down to that we, the consumer, will pay for something that was free. And Chuck Cook also, this is an interesting one. I like this one. Newer groundbreaking startup services will be at an even greater disadvantage versus existing services if the fees for that kind of access are increased and if they're not large enough to negotiate. That's a good point.
So that last point I 100% agree with. The problem is that if you're a startup and you're trying to compete with Google or Netflix or YouTube or something like that, access to bandwidth is the least of your problems. These are gigantic companies. They are not interested in disruptive competitors, and they have lots of levers that they can pull to make that harder for you. So yes, absolutely. And again, if this was 2007 or 1997 and it was the Wild West and all these, Google itself would not have been able to get off the ground without this. These days, the internet is, if you have, I don't know if they have this in the UK, but a lot of times when you build a new building downtown, they require like this public space in the base of the building that allegedly anybody can come into. But it's really like walled in because it's owned by the property owner, but they require like a public right of way to go through the building. That's what the internet is like. It's like it's surrounded by these giant skyscrapers, and there's this little corridor of space that is allegedly public, where you're sort of closed in by all of this privately owned stuff around you. So that's the environment that these guys are playing in. And yeah, I don't want to pay for stuff that's free either. That's why I say, let's keep it the way it is. I am in favor of that. But it's something that I think that we will adapt to.
Yeah, Lister's just posted a link on the Q&A. We'll also tweet this out as a way for ways to communicate to your congressman. No, I hadn't actually heard that analogy before. No, it's not something that is implemented here in the UK. That's why I was looking very confused at you. Really? That's news to me.
Alyssa, you know what I'm talking about?
I've got I do have an idea. I was a little distracted because I was posting that link, but yeah, you've got all of these. You've got these huge corporate entities that are on the web, and to find your way through all of them to get into these smaller public space areas where Leonard and I exist. That it's difficult, and you have to navigate through them, and that is indeed the more limitations the FCC puts up to us and the free speech, the more difficult it is to hear different ideas, and that I find a problem with, and that's why I'm personally against rolling back net neutrality. And so
yeah, that is to be worried about, but I would say that the more this is more a letting big corporations into your pocket than letting Big Brother into your house in the short term anyway. It creates the potential for a really troublesome civil rights and liberties issue, but the reason that this is happening is because of the money. It's not because of they want to shut people up or they want to limit what you can see. It's the carriers want a piece of the money that's currently going 100% to the content providers.
Mm-hmm. Sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for chiming in on both this topic, Rob.
And your listeners who are better informed on this stuff than I am, please post links and tell me I'm full of shit, and tell me where I can go to educate myself better on this. Because I've just been reading this stuff. This is a business I work in, so I'm familiar with both sides of it. But by all means, I would love to. If my argument does not hold water, please let me know why, and I'll because as I said, I'm temperamentally, I would like to keep it the way it is.
Well, unfortunately or fortunately, I come from a very strong conspiratorial background, given having grown up in part of the Back to the Land movement of the hippies in the 70s and 60s and 70s. So I naturally go towards corporations wanting to limit free speech. That's naturally where my mind goes. So I'm very, very concerned about them blocking segments of websites. That is my concern. And maybe it is a little, I agree that corporations are more concerned about the bottom dollar than they are about our comic conventions and communities and those types of things. And but moving on, I did want to say thank you for chiming in on both of these topics, Rob.
Well, thanks for having me on short notice here.
It was. No, listen, thank you so much indeed. I know that we contacted you very last minute on this. We really appreciate that you for you taking your time out on your Sunday. If people do want to follow not only your writings on net neutrality, but also on Salt Lake versus San Diego, where can people find you online? I know you're on Twitter, but do you have where's your regular home online?
So I have a relatively new website up at robsalkowitz.com, which is my professional site. So if you want to engage me as a consultant on various things, or see where my writings are, or that sort of stuff, that's where that is. For the more general purpose, I would say Twitter is best. And then I'm on Forbes probably about once or twice a week. I usually tweet out those links. And then I'm on ICB2 every other Monday. I have a column there, and everybody with an interest in this business should be reading ICB2, because that's where a lot of the comic websites and stuff like that get their, it's like their assignment desk, because that's where the inside news on the industry stuff comes first.
It is a great website. I agree. Thank you so much for contributing to it also.
All right. Well, thank you guys, and have a great rest of your day. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving belated to everybody.
Very quickly, so yeah, I don't think we caught it. He's on Twitter. It's Rob Salk, S-A-L-K, if you do want to follow him. But also, as Aaron Neighbors, I was about to chime in at the very end. Follow him on Instagram as well. He's a very good artist. He does some very good artwork as well. So yeah, keep an eye on that.
Oh, that's stealthy. My cover is blown. Yeah, Rob
there you
Salt
go.
One on Instagram. If you're that,
Rob Salt One. Yeah. That was us blowing smoke up your ass, just to let you know. Okay.
You'll come I've finally got your website up. I'm going to be posting the link on our little chat area so people can bookmark it.
Many thanks. I now have to go to the gym and repent for eating twice my own weight at the Thanksgiving table over the weekend.
Oh, but it was so good.
Yeah, it was very good.
Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for your time, and we'll hopefully catch you on the show. Certainly when we get a little bit more into Salt Lake versus San Diego, because I think that's going to be an interesting story as we get into the court case. I think that's going to develop interesting. Brilliant stuff. Thank you very much indeed.
Always a pleasure. All right. Talk to you later, guys.
Bye.
Brilliant. And there he goes. So there you go. That was Rob Salkowitz. Once again, you can follow him on Twitter, Rob Salk1 on Twitter. Very, very informed, very clever guy. And it's always a pleasure to have him on. Thank you very much indeed for that. Right, let's get through very quickly the other stories of the week. I did very quickly want to cover something which we kind of touched on a little bit in terms of MCM Comic-Con. A lot of people are actually been jumping in on the Q&A, because I wasn't actually entirely correctly informed on the structure of ReedPOP and how it was actually organized. I wasn't aware, for example, that ReedPOP is actually got its headquarters here in the UK. It's based here in Surrey, which is of interest to me. I thought they were a US-based company. As it happens, they do have a number of US shows, as you can imagine, which got everyone's attention. New York Comic-Con, of course, Seattle, with Emerald City, with the Star Wars shows, Star Trek shows. Obviously, a major organizer of North America shows. But they've also now taken on MCM Comic-Con, the UK shows here in the UK. This happened back in October, when about 4 or 5 days before London Comic-Con, they took over the UK shows. Nobody on the ground really knew about this. It was only really for the people like myself who follow stuff behind the scenes, making of the sausage, as the description was earlier. As it happened, there was no major changes to MCM Comic-Con. The deal was only 8 days old at that point. And Birmingham Comic-Con, which took place 2 weekends ago, obviously no major change there. However, at the beginning of last week, we did get our first news of major changes when it comes to Comic-Cons here in the UK. This was something that was announced, which I did post about on the Englishman in San Diego website. This is the fact that the shows have been announced to be expanded for MCM Comic-Con, which include Manchester, Glasgow, Birmingham, and London. Although I think a number of people are going to be incredibly interested to find out how they could possibly expand London even further, because it is an absolutely huge show as it is and sells out as it goes. So no real word on what those significant expansions could mean. However, they have announced that there's going to be a number of closures. The official announcement is, our goal at MCM is to provide the ultimate pop culture experiences for our fans throughout the UK. In order to deliver bigger and better events, brands, guests, and entertainment for our fans, we have made the difficult decision to discontinue the MCM Comic-Cons in Telford, which is in the Midlands, Liverpool, and Northern Ireland. These are actually very interesting changes, purely because these are popular shows, especially the Northern Ireland Belfast show and Liverpool. They actually made also the local news that these shows will be discontinued. They are going to be providing a vacuum for other convention organizers, such as showmasters here in the UK, to move into and to take over those spots and slots. It has raised a number of questions, certainly for fans, in terms of whether it means that ReedPOP are distilling the MCM brand to kind of the core shows, and whether we'll see that developing as we the deal continues. Does that mean that we're going to see less shows here in the UK of any quality? Because while showmasters have done great work with their London show, certainly the regional shows are a little bit more piecemeal. So it's proving to be an interesting topic at the moment, and I'm going to be following it very closely, purely because it could change the landscape of Comic-Cons here in the UK. Like we said when we first heard about the deal between ReedPOP and MCM, we knew that it was going to make a very substantive effect on how conventions take place here in this country. Shuttering 3 major events, that's, you don't get more of a bigger change than that. So we are going to be paying attention to this. The rest of the statement does state that moving forward, our focus will be significantly growing and expanding the shows in Manchester, Glasgow, Birmingham, and London. These are cultural hubs in the UK. As these shows evolve into larger, more exciting pop culture experiences, we hope that all of our fans throughout the UK will continue to support us. Obviously, the other comments that have been coming in off the back of this is whether it's going to cost more to exhibit at these shows, whether it's going to cost more to actually see some of the guests, whether we're actually going to see better guests coming to the shows. It's all so much in flux, and we are going to find out, obviously, what the major changes are going to be when we first see the real influence of MCM on the first show of 2018, which is in March, which is at Birmingham at the NEC. Michael P. I believe the remaining shows will be even better. Try to get Lance on the show. Do you think we haven't tried to get Lance on this show? We have been trying to get Lance on this show quite a lot. I will do my best to try and keep doing that.
Getting Mike Armstrong on the show, I think is a huge benefit. He certainly can speak to, although he can certainly be a little,
deceptive,
evasive. Yes, but he is entertaining, and he knows where the shows are going. And I have a feeling that the shows that remain are going to, you were concerned about how they're going to possibly expand LondonCon. They've figured out a way of expanding New York Comic-Con when people thought they couldn't do it. So, expanding into different venues closer by the conventions.
Well, that's the thing. Where they've been holding it so far is the XL, and as we mentioned when we've done our review of XL and of London Comic-Con, it's kind of out on its own. It's in the kind of Docklands area of London, and it's there on its own. You have a number of hotels, but they are purely just hotels. They don't have any major ballrooms inside them. They're just a bunch of rooms and a restaurant down at the bottom. So there's nothing. The only thing they could do is possibly use slightly more bigger rooms. I mean, for example, for Star Wars Celebration, ReedPOP did actually use the arena seating area, which MCM haven't necessarily had the funds to do in the past, or indeed had the big enough guests to warrant that. So that may be something that happens.
That's a wonderful area to expand and to make the existing cons. It goes back to what I was saying, making the existing cons bigger and more of a destination. Plus, you outlined that they had like 4 or 5 ReedPOP cons throughout the course of the season. That's for, given the amount of population, I'm thinking about carrying capacity of conventions. If you dilute the amount of conventions that, if you have 15 cons, people won't, they'll go to, the smaller local one versus making the long distance trek and spending the money to the bigger one.
Well, that's what people are concerned about, whether it's going to be a case of MCM developing stuff like New York Comic-Con, like basically making these big cons instead of having the smaller, more intimate, more regional events. I mean, I think it's something that, as Andrew English is turning around and correctly saying, that at the moment, the XL Centre, at the moment, there's nothing to compete in that for sheer size in the UK until the Earl's Court site is refurbished, which apparently is going to be some time away. At the moment, he's turning around and saying that London MCM is sold out and crammed. Yes, it is, but they're not efficiently using all of the space yet, Andrew. There's still quite a bit of space when it comes to the XL. But MCM at this point have not been able to afford that because of their current operating structure. ReedPOP can provide more of that basis. Just quickly, Andrew English is also mentioning about the MCM did a con in Belgium and Germany. Don't forget, ReedPOP only have taken on the UK shows. MCM Expo still run those international shows in Europe and beyond the UK. So, for example, the Paris show is out of the realm of ReedPOP. It is a separate deal. We're talking about the regional shows also very quickly. You could be seeing more of these regional shows popping up, certainly here in the UK. And we've got one that announced 5 guests last week, which was Portsmouth Comic-Con, announcing 5 more guests for May 2018, which include Walter and Louise Simonson visiting the UK for the first time in a decade, which is very cool. Sean Martinborough, who's an excellent artist, Tim Bradstreet as well, and also Tess Fowler is going to be coming over, who's going to be sharing more of her work with that she's doing for IDW and Black Crown Publishing at the moment. So she's coming back for the first time in 2 years. So it's looking like, we've got some great talent on the call list already for this show. Raphael Albuquerque, Cully Hamner, You've got Sean Phillips, Frank Quitely, who I've never met. I want to meet that man. I'm up for that. And Tommy Lee Edwards. This is at Portsmouth Comic-Con, which you can find out at portsmouthcomiccon.com. Right.
So when are you expecting the Gen Reg announcement?
Okay, well, let's move it on. Obviously, we haven't had any email this week, which I actually was thinking that we might. You never know. I thought that, so we might be seeing something for next weekend, which obviously is the 2nd. If we've not had anything this weekend, I will be paying very close attention to my inbox on Tuesday and Wednesday. I suspect maybe then we'll be seeing something for the 10th. We have turned around and said on numerous occasions on the show, we are never going to out and out turn around and say when a sale is going to be. But at the end of the day, we've got 3 weekends. It's not going to be next weekend, so we've got 2, the 9th and the 16th. It ain't going to be the 23rd because we're into Christmas. It ain't going to be the 30th because we're talking New Year.
I'm not sure.
So there we go.
They could announce tomorrow for the 2nd. They could. Okay, they could.
That's very short notice. That's incredibly short notice.
But we're probably
considering that we're talking a sale before the New Year, which the general public won't really have paid attention to. The only way they'll have known about this is if you've got a member ID up and running and it's going to be emailed to your inbox. For anyone else who's just going, oh, I won't mind going to Comic-Con, you never know. Actually, this might kind of keep the, what was it you called them before? The norms?
Yes,
norms. It could be some way of keeping the muggles off the street. Let's actually have the hardcore, the people who are actually signed up. Leanne D is saying they've done it before. I don't think they've done it this early.
No, they've announced quickly. They've announced, you know,
right, okay,
like Monday or Tuesday for a sale on Saturday, I think is what Leanne is saying. The other thing is that there will, if they do announce tomorrow, they're going to get a lot of people who are like, I just did my Black Friday shopping. So, because, yes, given my announcement earlier, I'm kind of stocking up on a few things, like there's a really good prices on television. So yes, I gave in. I got one of those Walmart TVs.
Was it me, or was Black Friday a complete non-event this year?
It was more of a non-event. It was very well managed in my local, very small local area, and I was very appreciative of the low stress. I mean, you still are getting it. What I'm hearing is that people, stores want a marathon. They don't want a Black Friday push, which I am heartily for.
If you can get the chance, if you can go to your social media, I'm certain it's on Facebook, I'm certain it's on Twitter. If you want to find that clip of the local news reporter that got out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, was outside of the mall at 5 o'clock in the morning, being sent there obviously to report the massive crowds outside of the mall, and found nobody there, and then was doing his live report back to the studio, not happy that he was out of bed for nothing.
Yes.
Watch it. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So there we go.
I walked into my local Walmart at half an hour past the time when they opened the doors on Christmas, Thanksgiving evening, and walked up and bought a $300 55-inch 4K television. No muss, no fuss. I was out of it in an hour. You know, said and done, done and dusted. I loved it. It was great.
Very nice.
So moving on from Black Friday to Open Reg. Anything else we want to talk about Open Reg?
Well, no, I don't. Well, I mean, there's something I'm going to do at the end, but we'll see how much time we've got to do on that. Because the other thing that I wanted to very quickly talk about as well is the other announcements this week that came out, certainly from CCI. We had ourselves, obviously, something that we really should have talked about more last week, but we really did get very crammed for time, and it's a shame because we really should have covered it more, which was the opening of the badge sales for WonderCon. which was done on the obviously the pressure for this is not as strong, so it was done not via the waiting room. It's all done via a link that you can find on your member ID. Tickets and badges are all sold on the CCI website, comic-con.org. So do check that out. Considering that they've announced 3 waves of special guests so far, and already it's shaping up to be quite the show. Jim Lee, Ed Pisker, V.E. Schwab, Liam Sharp, Ryan Benjamin, Kevin Hearn, Kat Staggs, Mark Wade. You also have Sergio Aragons, Jody Hauser, John Jennings, and Matthew Rosenberg. Those are announced so far, and we will get another set of 4 names, which will be coming out on, well, tomorrow, on Monday. If you do want to head to your member ID page, if you are interested in this, this is, of course, WonderCon Anaheim, held at the Anaheim Convention Center over the weekend of Friday the 23rd and Sunday the 25th of March.
And we will be doing a live report from WonderCon.
Excellent stuff.
Hopefully Silicon Valley Comic-Con and also San Diego Comic Fest in the spring.
We are doing best to bring as many live reports as possible, and also sort out 1 or 2 camera issues and make it a little bit smoother. And yeah, we're working on stuff. Trust me, we're getting.
One of the things I did get also with Black Friday, because yes, Black Friday, was a new fancy camera thing. So we'll get to try it out. Speaking of new conventions, there is a new convention that and Aaron Nabu can speak to this also, because I think he's going to be participating in it. I'm not quite sure. There's a convention in February taking place in San Diego. I forgot.
Really?
Aaron, can you let us know the name of it? It's for Black creators, and I believe it's taking place in the middle part of February. So it's it really is. It's found a niche in the end of the festival. So you know, in the end of the season, the middle part of the season. So maybe we can also get a live report from Aaron from that also, which would be fun.
That's cool. Leanne D, y'all, I'm guessing talking about the podcast, should make an Amazon wish list for stuff you need. I feel really cheeky. I'd feel cheeky about that. I mean, I asked already about the Patreon. There is only one item that I want, and that's a DJI Osmo Mobile, which I think is what you've picked up, isn't it?
Yes, I am getting one.
I want a gimbal. I want a gimbal, so it's not looking so. Yeah, I mean, I did my live report outside of D23 Expo. We had a guy from the originals who my wife's a massive fan of. He kind of wandered in, or he wandered next to us trying to get into the building. I pulled him over to put him, and someone took a picture of us, and it's all well and good me looking slightly scruffy in jeans, shorts, and a shirt. That's fine. But the fact that I was just holding my phone up, it looked really, really. Oh, I wouldn't mind. Yeah, that's all I'm after. I want that for Christmas, and I'm pushing the missus for that one. But anyway, very quickly as well, this is one of our first announcements for San Diego Comic-Con. This came out this week, and it kind of got hidden underneath an announcement for TBS and Google Play, announcing a partnership which is going to see the platform become the exclusive mobile gaming partner for the talk show franchise for Conan. The partnership is going to see Google Play live stream stunts, in-show brand integration, so you're going to be seeing a lot more Google Play stuff on the show. But buried in there was also an interesting little line stating that Google Play is also going to be road tripping with Conan for the show's 4th annual appearance at San Diego Comic-Con. In other words, we have a confirmation that they are coming back. More than likely it's going to be at the Spreckles, because if it ain't broke, they're happy at that location, so it's more than likely going to be back there. But no, it looks like all that crush to get into Conan will be back again for this year, or next year, sorry. Will I be doing that again? Probably not. I've done it once. I've done it. I'm all right. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
What the pops? You want the pop. Yeah, that's it. That's it. I know.
There you go.
Is asking if we're going to do a live report from ECC. I hope we are able to. I am not planning on going to ECC this year. As much as I would love to, and I had a blast there, and it's a great convention, and I wish I could. I just, given everything else that's going on in my life, it's not in the cards this year. Hopefully next year. That said, I'm probably, you know, once I get to San Diego, I'll probably have an open house and everybody's invited. Party at my place.
Fair enough. Right. Something that Dan Berry, how was the Wi-Fi at D23? It was terrible. It kept walking away. Right.
Thank you.
I was going to do something which I've announced on the comments for the YouTube for this. It's something that I think we're going to put off to a separate video. I think I'm going to do something this week, which is going to be a beginner's guide. Something we're going to be doing on a regular basis between now and July are our beginner's guides, because something that I think we really do forget is that people do go to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time. And it would be good to actually remind ourselves that, yes, these are people that don't know what we're kind of talking about some of the time when it comes to some of the regular things that you can get up to at San Diego. We want to kind of help those people get the most out of the visit to San Diego. So we are going to be doing a number of beginners guides. We are going to be doing one on open online badge sale. It will either be a separate video later on this week, or it's going to be part of next week's show. I am going to be doing my best to get Lance on the, listen, I keep sending him emails. We'll find out. So we'll see how that goes. Right, let's very quickly wrap things up then in terms of Week in TV, our media for the week. Alyssa, take it away.
We have, this week we're getting an interesting, and I have not been following the CW, but we're getting an interesting crossover with the Arrowverse, Crisis on Earth X. It's a 4-part crossover series touching each of the CW superhero lines. It's the marquee event. I have not been following any of those shows. I am extremely limited in what I'm currently watching. That said, I'm going to catch the Comedy Channel's Drunk History Christmas special, which is airing this week. I'm looking forward to that. It's so history, drinking. How can you go wrong? Followed quickly by Vikings. Vikings is coming back for its 5th season for a 2-hour premiere. Always love Vikings. It's, a very in-your-face kind of a show, real characters, but everybody already knows that. They are doing it a 1-hour premiere, 1-hour pre-show to get everybody up to speed, just in the 4th season's activities. So that is happening on, I don't know, Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's if you go to the blog, and we've got it listed on the blog in this Next Week in Television.
Do you mean on the forum? There is this other blog out there.
Well, no, I'm sorry, on my blog.
on the blog on Friends of Comic-Con.
Yes, sorry, my blog. See, this is what happens when you have 2 people who are strong-willed. We each won't give up our own things because we enjoy working together so much. Anyway, moving on. 4th episode of Robert Kirkman's Secret History and Comics comes
very quickly. Then, yeah, I haven't seen episode 3 yet. What was it like?
Episode 3 on Superman.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, that I'm trying to, you hit me with this question out of the blank, and I'm kind of going, oh no, what was it about? I liked it. I really liked it. It went into the Siegel and Siegel and I forget the other.
You got it right. Yes, no, you got it right. Siegel and Schuster.
Yep, Siegel and Schuster. It went into their legal battle, and it was it was heart-wrenching. It was heart-wrenching to the same extent that the Bill Finger battle was. Not
really.
It had
cool.
a
I said cool there, but I think it's more cool the fact that more people learn about this stuff, because artists back in the Silver Age got absolutely screwed over.
Yeah.
So no, the recognition was definitely something that
recognition was there, and you had a reenactment of I believe it was a reenactment, but you had the just of them attending the first movie premiere for Superman with Christopher Reeves way back when. And you know, just how much that meant to them that their names were on the screen, you know, as the creators. And they got a little bit more than anybody else did, but it was a great episode, highly recommended. And although I'm kind of not sure what to expect with tomorrow's episode, which is the New York City's connection to the comic industry and how the tragedies of 9/11 affected artists and their work, and how life imitates art. I'm not really quite sure how that is. I would love to see more on the Comics Code. I'm not really.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken to one of the production team, and we've kind of put our votes forward for topics for the next season. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the Comics Code needed to be covered. We kind of jumped in on that.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
Well,
so there's I mean, I'm curious to how that's going to stretch out to a full episode, because while I appreciate New York City's place in comic history, I am wondering how they're going to stretch the whole thing out. I'm wondering if they are going to be talking about DC's move from New York to the West Coast, and what prompted that. And I mean, obviously they wanted to be closer to Hollywood, and instead of doing the transatlantic calls thing.
And when it's going to start with New York's influence. I mean, because you have all of the creators coming out of the Lower East Side in the 60s, 50s, and 60s. Is it going to start with the influence in the late 60s, early 70s? You know, for how it influenced it, and end with 9/11. You know, and how it represented it. It's regardless, the series has been so well done up to this point. It will be watched tonight when it airs live, because that's the way it is.
I'm curious how many times Steve Ditko's name is going to come up, considering that guy is ensconced. he's not moving anywhere. So yeah, that's going to be cool. Okay, so that's going to be an interesting show to watch. And yes, another program that's going to be returning on Friday for a 2-hour season premiere. It's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It is back. Looking forward to this. I've been getting into so many conversations and arguments over the last couple of weeks. Basically, people who are saying, "Well, I gave up just as season 2 started. It didn't get there. It didn't get there quick enough." At which point I go, "You missed out on some amazing television. The last season was incredible." I'm looking forward to this. I'm very much up for this. A couple of things that are jumping in on the Q&A, which. Yeah, I mean, admittedly, I don't think we've mentioned this purely because I haven't seen it. I don't know if you have, Alyssa. Runaways.
Yes, I have seen the episodes that have aired. I like it. It is kind of teen focused, but the characters are real. It's not your classic CW perception, you know, of what they think teenagers are. You know, they've got their own problems, and their parents are evil and they're doing some kind of wacky stuff that you don't know about. And to throw it all into a mix, there looks like there's a raptor. So I get teeth, I get teen angst, and I get good writing. So I highly recommend Runaways. At some point, take a free subscription to Hulu and catch it. We are enjoying moving from Netflix to Hulu, and so highly recommend. The other thing I want to do is, Leanne, you mentioned History of Image Comics on sci-fi.com. Where this one I did not know about. I'm
going to quickly bring this up as well, because I mean, this was one of the things that we actually talked about with the producer of Secret History. We thought that yeah, that might be something that would be showing up. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look for this. This is yeah. Oh, is it?
Well, that's what she said. It was a web series. So we're going to be looking at that, and maybe we'll talk about it.
I'm going to be looking. Yeah, someone can send us a link to that. That'd be interesting. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Right. Kendall Whitehouse is saying if you have a Hulu subscription, don't miss Batman and Bill. That's also been it's on Netflix as well. So do check that out. It's it's a
must watch.
Yes, it is a must watch. I will turn around and I will justify a couple of criticisms of it. It is a little bit like the a glorification of the person who's made the documentary, in that he kind of is very look at what all the effort I've done to bring this story to you. It's a little bit self-aggrandizing in places, but thankfully in what he's actually doing, it does make a little bit more sense that he is talking about Bill Finger's contribution to Batman and bringing that to the fore. So take it with a pinch of salt and take the good bits out, and then take the polishing of his own deification to one side. But there we go. Okay, last but not least, is that it? I think actually that we may be done.
I think we are pretty much done. Next week, we plan on. We don't know what
I've invited a number of special guests, but like I say, something that I want to do is a beginner's guide, and I do want to do something on the open online badge sale. Like I say, I don't think it's going to be happening next week. So if that's the case, we may be having this beginner's guide on next week's show. We're going to be talking you through the process. We're going to be doing screenshots and actually talking you through the relatively simple process of getting badges for San Diego Comic-Con. If you know anybody that will be going for the first time next year, or is hoping to, do get them to join us next week's show, because we'll do our best to talk you through the process of that. Right, I think that's pretty much us. So, Alyssa, can you tell us where you can be found online?
I am actually just found the thingy that Leanne, the URL, because everything's a thingy, that Leanne's did. And I'm going to try and do this. I'm going to try and put it down there and see if I can actually get that on. People can find me at Alyssa at my email address is alyssa@friendsofcc.com. If you want to send me any links to interesting television stuff like this sci-fi channel thing, I think I may have found it and posted that on there already. That's the Sci-Fi Wire. The other thing is that I am on Twitter, and that my Twitter handle is @friendsofcc. And you can always find me on my forum, which is friendsofcc.com.
Stuff. For myself, you can find me at an Englishman in San Diego on various social medias, Englishman SDCC, and of course, let me just do that. You can also keep an eye on what we're getting up to on the website at anenglishmaninsandiego.com, and you can also please help us continue what we do on the web series and on our live reports and all the other bits and pieces on our Patreon, patreon.com/EnglishmanSDCC. Every small penny helps, so please do jump in and contribute, please, where you can. Something else I'm going to quickly jump in with as well is a little bit of a personal announcement, or a personal request. You see, Alyssa, you got yours in, my turn. This is something that I mentioned a couple of weeks back, and I've been mentioning throughout the course of the last couple of weeks. My brother, Paul, is a rather handsome, dashing chap, and he's basically going to be jumping into a boxing ring to get his face punched in. He's going to do a charity boxing match for Cancer Research UK. This is happening in the middle of December. He's about just under 4 weeks away from stepping into the ring, and he's basically raising money for this incredible charity, which does some fantastic work in supporting people who have cancer here in the UK, but also in trying to do everything they can to try and solve any issues and also solve the problem of cancer. Do check out Haley's Army, My Fight for Cancer Research UK. You can search for it on not only GoFundMe.com, but also on Facebook as well. Once again, it's Haley's Army, because he's doing the fight under the name of a friend of his who passed away, Haley, who he's going to be naming as the name's charity. Haley's Army, My Fight for Cancer Research UK. Do check that out, and please donate, even if it's a couple of quid, just a couple of dollars, whatever you can throw into the kitty. It really would benefit and help us out a lot. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today. Once again, next week, either special guests or we're going to be doing this, our first of our beginner's guide to San Diego Comic-Con. Open online badge sale. Keep your eyes on your inboxes tomorrow and Tuesday. You never know. Do take care, and we'll hopefully see you on next week's show. Once again, thanks to Rob Sarkowicz for joining us, and to you guys for joining us as well. Take care and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.